Principal Matters Podcast, episode 452. Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, along with my co-host, Dr. Jen Schwanke. And before we jump into this week's episode, which is going to be with my special guest, Tracie Swilley, National Secondary Principal of the Year. Jen, this is one of those golden conversations. I'm so glad Tracie is joining us. But we usually begin with a question of the week. So why don't you set up our question for us from this week?
So this continues. We're getting to the end of the questions that were posed by the students in my class at The Ohio State University. We just put together some questions that we wanted to throw out for Will to answer. We're putting Will on the hot spot. So this one comes from Diona Ross, who serves as a high school intervention specialist in Columbus, Ohio. And she has a question for you about equity in staffing.
All right. We have talked a lot, Will, in this class about standardization of how staff are evaluated and treated, and how that's really tricky because every staff member's story is different. Their needs are different. We've talked about that quite a bit. And this is, just so you know, this is our second to last class together. So we have looked at this inside and out, but Diona has a question for you about it. Love to hear your perspective. So Diona, you're up.
Hello, my name is Diona Ross. I'm an intervention specialist at a high school. And my question is, how did you ensure equity and fairness in staff evaluations, promotions, and leadership opportunities?
Yeah, that is a loaded question because there's so many layers there. So I'll just say this, since you guys have talked about this before, it's really important, I think, and I know this varies from district to district, state to state, region to region, but so I'll just speak to my experience. It was really important in the schools where I served for us to have a common expectation for schedules, for numbers of observations, evaluations, and an agreed upon instrument, but of which everyone was going to be using the same across schools and across districts. And so I'm hoping most of you have that in place, but if you don't, that's the first place to start, is to make sure you have some common agreed upon way, process and standards. So, but it's also important that if you're the one utilizing that tool, that you know how to use it, but then you also become the teacher of your teachers of this is how we're going to use it. So this is how the tool works. This is how I'm going to use it when I'm with you. This is how often I'm going to use it. And I'm just going to say this as a will practice. One of the most important commitments I made every summer stepping into the school year, and Jen, you're going to laugh at me because you and I probably do these things a little bit different, but I would take 2 or 3 teachers a week and I would place them on my schedule for each week the entire year in advance, so that I knew every single week as I stepped into the week which 2 or 3 teachers I'm going to be concentrating time in their classrooms for feedback and observations. And of course, all of those are rotating over the numbers of times I'm going to be with them that year. And I would share that list out in advance with my staff to just say, I'm not picking the day I'm going to be in your room this far in advance. I'm just letting you know on that week, expect to see me. And what that did for me was it gave me a way to just chunk the time so that I'm equitably seeing everybody. And so that they also knew in advance, I'm going to usually reach out the week before and say, hey, remember next week I'm coming to see you. Is there something you would like me to come by and spend some time with? Or is there an hour you want me to avoid because maybe you're just doing assessment the whole time? So it was really important for me to build those structures in advance so that I'm lowering the amount of anxiety that other people have about my time with them. And then the last thing I'm going to say is something that actually was another guest on my show. David Yeager wrote a book called The Mentor Mindset. And he's done a lot of research. He's a psychologist. He's a psychology professor, but a former middle school teacher. And I loved this because he showed me the evidence where he had done some feedback surveys with students and with teachers and with employees. And whenever a teacher or a principal or a manager is just direct about they're implicit about why I want to be very clear why I'm coming to see you, or why I'm spending time in your room, or why I'm asking you to do this. You can put it in all those settings. The performance metrics on students or teachers or people being managed immediately go up for people who have to guess why you're there. And so I would just say one of the most important things you can do is just be very, I should have said explicit, very explicit about why I want to be with you, what I'm doing here, and what this process is going to look like. So, man, Jen, this is a hard question to answer. That
I know these questions are so good, and no, you're doing a great job. And for our listeners, you only have only two more hot seat questions for Will.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. As school leaders, we all know that student behavior impacts everything: learning, staff morale, and school culture. That's why I want to tell you about Connecting Through Conversation, a practical online course from Erica Bear and Tiffany Burns. This course helps your team de-escalate situations, avoid power struggles, and build stronger student relationships. It's super flexible, short videos, easy reflection guides, and perfect for individuals or staff groups. Best of all, it won't overwhelm your already packed schedule. And here's a bonus. Principal Matters listeners get a discount. Use the code Principal Matters to save $50 on the individual course or $200 on a site license. Check it out at connectingthroughconversation.com and start creating a culture of calm and connection today. That's connectingthroughconversation.com. Over 1 million teachers use IXL in their classrooms every day for one reason. They love it. Why? IXL is where the magic happens. With just one platform, teachers can personalize learning for every student. IXL gives teachers all the tools they need to enhance and differentiate instruction without adding work to their plates. Plus, IXL has decades of expertise and has proven to be effective. Studies on more than 70,000 schools across 45 states show that those who use IXL outperform others on state tests. Ready to bring the magic to your school? Visit IXL.com/PM to learn more.
You're listening to Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast.
Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, where each week we bring you inspiring, innovative, and imaginative ideas for your own school leadership. And this week, what a treat. We're going to be talking about reaching every student with my special guest, Dr. Tracie Swilley. Dr. Tracie Anderson Swilley is the principal of Fairfield Central High School in Winnsboro, South Carolina, and she was named the 2025 National Principal of the Year, a testament to her 12 years of inspiring leadership. Originally a biology major, she discovered her passion for education through mathematics and began her journey as a high school math teacher before becoming a dean of students, assistant principal of curriculum and instruction, and now a principal. Under her leadership, Fairfield Central has achieved remarkable student success despite economic challenges, and Dr. Swilley credits her team and students for their resilience, emphasizing that circumstances do not define potential. Known for her unwavering belief in staff and students, she continues to shape a culture of growth, confidence, and achievement. Dr. Tracie Swilley, welcome to Principal Matters Podcast. Feel free to fill in the gaps in that intro. And what might listeners be surprised to know about you?
Yes, thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be with you. I think, one of the things I always tell people that's different about my story too is I was able to move into the assistant principal role at my high school alma mater. So I was able to actually go back to my high school and end up supervising teachers who actually taught me. And I tell, the story also to say that my middle school principal actually was the principal of the high school at that time, and he hired me. And so I use that story to talk to my kids about you're never knowing who you're going to interact along your journey and when that cycle is going to turn around, and you then are looking at that person as a potential employer. And so you never get never get another time to make a good first impression. And it might actually be when you're a middle school student. And so I tell them the importance of being your best self each and every day. And so that's something that's different about my story that people are often shocked to hear about.
I love that. Now I'm going to give full disclosure to you and listeners, because we're recording this in the middle of the school year, 2025. This episode may not come out until we're into summer. So Tracie, sometimes it's interesting for me to listen back to myself, months behind. So some people listening to this may be stepping into their summer break. But what I would love to have them know in this conversation is no matter what time of the school year they're in, what it feels like to be recognized as a National Principal of the Year. But you and I both know that recognition is also connected to your school's success. So two things I want to ask you. One is, What inspired you to do this work that you did? And then second, we can talk about some of the outcomes happening at Fairfield.
Absolutely. So I would say I was inspired to get into education based on the experience that I had with a mathematics teacher in college. I had a college professor who taught me the why of mathematics. And as an honors kid going through school, I really didn't have trouble in the academics area of being an honor roll kid all the way through. But math always took a little extra in order for me to get good grasp. And it wasn't until college. And I immediately then I changed my major and I said, I have to teach somebody else's kid this. I always loved working with kids. I did the teacher cadet program when I was in high school. I think I was running for my initial calling at first. But I knew then I had to teach students what I had learned in college. And so that started the journey of working with young people. And so my passion also comes from in this work of, I've experienced being part of a high poverty rural community growing up. And I know the limits that people had for my potential outcomes was based on where I went to high school. And so I want to share my story with my students of we have a no limit mentality. I'm not preparing you to compete with people in Winsboro, South Carolina. We're going to prepare you to compete with anybody across this nation. And that is the goal that I put for them every day. And so I passionately do it because I lived it. And I'm able to pour into my kids what was poured into me by those that were in my village as I grew up and was educated. Here at Fairfield Central, I'm so elated about the things that we have done together here. One of the biggest things have been, of course, as a high school principal, I say my favorite day is graduation. And so we have improved the graduation, hitting as high as 91%. But we have, throughout my journey, stayed at the state level for grad rate throughout. Additionally, we have students who, beyond limits of their control, are not afforded the opportunity to work towards a high school diploma, but they are able to earn credentials that allow them to be able to take care of themselves and have a family and be productive citizens. And that is always a goal that I'm going to celebrate. Additionally, we have on last year, we earned a good rating on our school report card in the state, which means our school exceeds the expectations placed upon us for high schools in South Carolina. And that is the first time ever in school history. And so we are very, very excited about the work that we have done together as a school, our students, our staff, and community to make Fairfield Central great.
Mm. Those achievements are so amazing. And I know they don't happen overnight. They don't happen in isolation. And it's funny, Tracie, you and I actually met in Miami in January of 2025 when we were both attending the same SAM's National Innovation Conference. And you sat through my pre-conference sessions on Pause, Breathe, Flourish. And then you took the main stage and just brought the house down, encouraging leaders and educators to serve every student that is in their communities. It's funny because on the way home from that conversation, I was on the airplane, and the guy sitting beside me found out I was an educator, and he made a comment that I've often heard. People say, "Oh, isn't it sad how bad our nation's schools are?" And it's just sad that's the state of education right now. And my response to him was, "Yes, it is sad when you see struggling schools, but I know a lot of schools who are reaching the needs of kids, that they're growing and improving. And I know leaders who are committed to that kind of growth." And so, Tracie, it's one of my passions is to keep bringing the voices of leaders like you back to the mic to speak to other leaders and say, we can do this. And so I want you to just go there for a moment. Talk about your journey. What did it take for you to go from stepping into a school that you knew needed this kind of improvement to the place where you guys are today?
Right. And I will always tell the story, and I believe in telling the truth. I didn't start off right. I jumped in all wrong. I jumped in with this superwoman on my chest, the S on my chest, thinking that I could make the shift and that it was only my responsibility to make this shift. And so, I did late nights, weekends, didn't have a balance of any work-life balance. It was just work, 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 work. And I found myself, going in circles. So almost like the hamster on the wheel, just rolling in circles. But thankfully, I had a village, and the village did not only include educators. The village included my family, who said, "Listen, my dad was really upset with me. He was like, you're not going to be able to sustain working like that. You're a mother. You have a life. You have a responsibility, so that you could be your best self in that building." I had educators in the building that said, "Look, you're going to have to use some of these other people in here, and make them work. Delegate some things. This is not just your responsibility." And I had other educational leaders who I had built relationships with, who had been principals, and gave me different strategies that I had to utilize. And so I would tell everybody I started wrong. Then I learned how to use my people. I learned how to sit back and watch and observe, so that I could gain and make data informed decisions, and not just making decisions from assumptions. I also learned the importance of it. You have to ensure that the environment is right before you can get to the work of improving student achievement, because you may make some quick gains by jumping just on the data of student achievement, but if you don't ensure that you have a culture and climate that is conducive to learning, and recognize that you have, as the leader, set the tone of that for the building, but then the teachers need to have a culture and climate in their classrooms so that it can sustain throughout the building. So when those doors shut, that the learning that you need to have happening in those classrooms are happening, such that you're able to get the results that you desire on those assessments. And when you have the right environment, the success is going to come on the assessments. It will take time. It's not an overnight fix. But it will happen, and you will be able to sustain that growth. It won't be just a glimpse in the dark, or we're crossing our fingers and hoping that we'll get the results we desire, because you have put in the work to be able to establish consistency on getting those results. So that would be a little bit of the journey that we have had, and how we got to this point. Also, the main thing is we had to put some systems in place. It wasn't that we didn't have people working hard, but what were we working on? And so really understanding how every role in the school building was essential to the learning, whether you were the registrar, the custodian, the cafeteria worker, whatever, everybody's role is essential in getting student achievement. And so that was a big part of the journey, of making certain that everybody understood how they needed to do things in order to help our students. And then making certain our students understood what was expected of them. And so a lot of times in high school, people assume, well, by the time they get to high school, they should know. No, we needed to teach them how to behave in the classrooms, how to behave in the hallways, how to behave in the cafeteria, how we act in a program and assembly. We had to get them vested in what we were doing here at Fairfield Central. And so that is the journey. It did not happen overnight, but putting those things in place consistently over time worked for us here.
What I love about that, Tracie, is your commitment that your entire school community becomes your classroom. And so you visited every single one of those areas with strategies, norms, systems, expectations in and out of classrooms for your teachers, for your staff, for your non-instructional staff, because everybody becomes a part of that movement towards school improvement. I also know because I know your story, you have had an enormous commitment to creating a place that students are proud to be a part of. So talk about that commitment. How are you able to just instill that sense of pride in your students as to want to be a part of the school community?
Right. So when I arrived as the principal, I was the fourth principal that senior class had experienced. And so they were looking at me like, let's see how long she's going to make it. And so I made a commitment that day that I was going to be here at least to see a ninth grade class go through 12th grade. And so that is the big thing too, is being committed. And one of the things they said to me when I first arrived was, "Welcome to the field. What do you expect?" And it wasn't in a positive connotation. And I said, "I expect greatness." And so we came up with a motto at that time of soaring to greatness. Griffins believe, Griffins achieve, and Griffins succeed. And we say that to this day, and kids can finish it off because that is truly what we're doing. We're preparing our kids to achieve and succeed. But they first had to believe that they could do it. And so we made sure that we laid out a pathway for all students to experience success. And they don't just graduate from Fairfield Central High School saying, "Oh, I got to go to work," or "I got to go into the military," or, maybe I want to go to college. No, you leave equipped, ready to go to any of those options that you are able to do. And you know the pathway to get there, and you know the pathway to be successful once you are there. And so we had to make certain that we change that mindset. We had to instill in them that when people are talking about Fairfield Central, they're not talking about these bricks and mortar. They're talking about your school. So you got to have pride. And so we use that, our PBIS matrix, and we tied everything into the Griffin mascot. And, the Griffin is a mythological creature. But I told them, I said, you're comprised of the king of the beasts and the king of the air. You are made to dominate. Like we had to build that in them so that when they walk out of this school, they know I go to Fairfield Central and I'm proud of it. And why and how they were going to represent their school and compete to the best of their ability, whether it was in athletics, academics, or the arts, so that they can excel and do great things. And so it was a journey of reinstilling that pride, but that's something that, we put the time and energy into, and it has paid dividends.
Well, you made me a believer, Tracie. So this is the field. We are soaring to greatness. Griffins believe, they achieve, they succeed. And you don't, this is not a motto for you. You demonstrate that, you show that, you, you, you are right there in the middle of, you're like the mother of your school. So talk about how, as a leader, how important it is to be your true self when it comes to taking who you are as an individual and then making sure that that true version of you is the way you lead also, because I'm not going to do it the way you do, and you're not going to do it the way that I do, but you've certainly done it the way Tracie, I believe the best version of Tracie has done it.
Absolutely. And I would tell people, I messed that up too. I started off trying to emulate other people, and that's not a bad thing. You have to surround yourself with great leaders and pull different strategies that work. But at the end of the day, it's just like teachers who employ other strategies from observing other teachers. In order to be the most effective, you do it as yourself. And so I'm a mother. And so when all the students walk into my school building, I tell them their last name is Swilley until they go back home to their parents. And I really mean that. I love them. I nurture them. I correct them, do all of the things that a mother would do for their students and their schools. But ultimately, I want the absolute best for them. And to get the absolute best for them, you have to push them to their full potential, but you also have to equip them with everything they need in order to be successful. And so I use that same scenario with my teachers of telling them, listen, if you have children, teach them like your kids are sitting in your classroom. And I didn't have to stretch that too far because my kids are actually walking through the building. My son graduated last year, and I was able to shake his hand and give him his high school diploma. And my daughter's now here as a freshman. So I don't have to stretch the imagination too much. But for those who may not even have their own biological children, you have a child in your life that you love and care for. Put that face on any of the students that you serve, and it will give you that passion that you need to push through on some of those days that can get challenging, that come along with the territory. And so that is the important part of really also too, I had to recognize, they often crack a joke about when I first arrived at Fairfield. I wore a suit and I had on a skirt suit and I had my hair pulled back in a bun because I thought that was all of the things that you had to look like as a principal. I wanted to look like a principal. But I learned to embrace being me. I participate with my kids on club days and spirit days. You'll see me in the 90s gear. You'll see me dressing as a cartoon character. On holidays, I have a t-shirt for every holiday. Easter, it says principal of the amazing peeps, and there's little peeps on my shirt. Or Halloween, I have the shirt that says nothing scares me. I'm a high school principal. Like, I have a t-shirt for everything. And I think that's a part of creating an environment that can be fun. High school can be fun, school can be fun, and should be fun. And creating that environment for students and staff has been a part of who I am. I'm a high energy person. And so I love having a good time with my kids, but we can have good time and learn and accomplish the goals that we have for us here. And so I just embrace being me, employ the strategies I have learned from some amazing leaders, and it's working.
I love that. So, and I've heard you say this in other settings. I can give you the strategies, but you need to make them yours. And so, Tracie, two things I want to follow up on, because I have listeners to this show who are aspiring or newer leaders, and I have listeners to this show who are experienced and veteran leaders. So let's talk first to that aspiring or newer leader. If you were able to give them a few thoughts to hold on to as they're stepping into this work, what would you tell them?
Listen, if you're an aspiring or a new leader, you should definitely not be the first one out the door. Make certain you are taking advantage of any opportunity there is to soak up knowledge, to help out with assistant principal tasks, principal tasks. I'm thankful for the assistant principals who allowed me to help with them learning about testing, learning about master scheduling, the principals that I've had that said, come on in and sit in for this budget meeting. Let me pick your brain about this particular strategy that we want to try or idea that we have on campus. So I'm thankful for all of those opportunities. So if you're an aspiring leader, meaning you want to get into administration, please, please, please take advantage of any opportunity your building leaders give you to grow and participate or assist with administrative tasks. If you are new to the principalship, understand that don't feel like you should have been better prepared. There's no true preparation until you sit in the seat. I think you could do as many things to get your feet wet into the role, which is great, but is nothing like sitting in the seat. So as a new principal, I would tell you to make certain you tag onto a mentor who has been able to have the success that you desire to have, and surround yourself with resources of reading professional literatures, podcasts like this one, and things. People in your village that have achieved the goals or walking the path that you desire to embark upon. Give yourself grace, recognizing that you don't have to know it all. Everybody thinks the principal has to know it all, but based on the experiences that you have when you were an aspiring leader, you should know where you can go and gather the information that you need in order to be successful. So don't feel like you have to know it all. You don't have to be a content expert of every single area in your building. You just simply need to know the strategies that are best practices for all of those content areas, and then play to your strengths. Lead where you're strong, team where you're weak. You don't have to do it all. You just ensure that it all gets done. And doing that with a collaborative nature is what worked for me. So that would be my advice for new and aspiring leaders.
Oh my gosh, Tracie. So if you're a new listener and you're taking notes, just pause, rewind 5 minutes, listen to that again. And Tracie, I've done this work for a really long time, and my whole career is devoted to principal development and leadership. That summary might be the best that I've ever heard someone give. And that's no shade on any of my other friends or my own work, but seriously, that list of things you just said could be your next book, in terms of like just the essentials necessary for learning from others, recognizing you don't know it all, as you do the work, reaching out to other people to help you do the work, but then just investing where you are in whatever moment you're in and whatever role that you're in, investing in that role to learn as much as you possibly can to be prepared for what you want to do. Let's talk now to that veteran leader, that experienced leader too, because doing this work sustainably takes a lot of motivation. So talk to that person, Tracie. What are some things you would want to leave with an experienced leader?
Well, all of our lights dim a little bit as we move through this work. I will never say it goes out. I think once it goes out, hopefully we're retiring. But I think it dims a little bit. And so to reignite your passion and your fire and your spark, I always tell people, just as I told the new and aspiring to get you a good mentor, get you a good mentee. So taking the opportunity to pour back into the younger leaders, because we do hopefully will be able to retire and turn schools over to our new and aspiring leaders. But we want to make certain that they have been filled with information that will sustain the growth and the good legacy that we want for our students to receive, and the education we want our future generation of leaders to receive. And so get yourself a good mentee and tag onto them. I will tell you, I'm working with some principals now, and I steal ideas from them all the time because they have that young, innovative thing. I was like, yes, I can steal that. I can use that. I'm gonna cite you one time, and then it becomes mine. And so that's where I get my energy from on those days that get tough. Also tapping into your children, so using your students to motivate you and hear their ideas. My student voice groups give me great ideas that I wanted to try to get that spark back. Additionally, I would say high school principals, especially, get you an elementary principal partner. They have all of those creative ideas. And I think it's because they make bulletin boards every other week. But they get the creative juices that I just didn't get. But partnering with an elementary principal will help you come up with ideas and to engage your high school, middle school kids who are just kids in bigger bodies, but they love those same things. I have a treasure chest in my office. Try it. I pass out little principal cards that say, "Come by the principal's office. You can go into my treasure chest," and they go in there and they're digging for minutes. And I said, "Just pick something." But they're excited. Number one, because you recognize them for whatever they were doing great, and then they get an opportunity to get an incentive. And what kid doesn't want that? And so, really being able to give the kids an opportunity to just be kids. Our society today sometimes rushed them to grow up. And, I told them that high school, especially, is the last step before adulthood. And so enjoy being a kid, take advantage of being that kid. So high school principals, get you a good elementary, middle school buddy, collaborate with them, share ideas, but make certain leaders, you have a village. Leaders need a village too. Oftentimes people will check on the students, people will check on the teachers, but not many people say, well, how's the principal? And so leaders need villages too. So make certain you have people in your life that will pour into you, fill your cup, reignite your fire so that you can do this work for kids each and every day.
Oh my gosh. Tracie, Swilley, I want listeners to know how they can stay connected with you. So before we leave, I really want you to give them an opportunity for them to just find out if they want to bring you in, because you do PD with staff, you speak at conferences, but I also know you love to build friendships. So how can listeners stay connected with you? And then what's a final word of advice or parting word that you'd like to leave with listeners?
Absolutely. So you can stay connected with me. I am on X at Principal T Swill. Also LinkedIn on Tracie Anderson Swilley. I will also say I have my own LLC, educate-her.com. So playing on the word educator, but educate her. So educate-her.com. And there you can email me. We can chat. We can talk to figure out what we need to do next, or what information that you would like from me. My advice would be, we need passionate educators. We really, the cliche term that we always hear is educators make all other careers possible, but it's really factual statement. Educators do make all other careers possible, and we have a powerful role to impact the next leaders in our society. We could have the next president in our schools. We could have the next doctors, lawyers, educators. We need to work like our future depends on it, because it does. And so making certain that you trust the process. I think this age of accountability and school systems, making certain first that you just jump in and create the type of environment where learning will occur. If you have quality teaching and learning occurring every day for your students, the results will come. The results will not come overnight, but they will come. So trust the process. Keep that plan, do, check, act cycle in your mind. Always ensure that your kids are getting high quality, rigorous education curriculum based on standards that they're receiving receiving high quality materials, and that you just, ensure that you have the best leaders, teachers, educators, custodians, cafeteria workers, everyone who is essential to the learning process in your building, motivated, pumped to impact our future and the next generation. So I would just give you that advice of trusting the process, ensure that you have the right people in your schools, on the right seat on the bus, and then make certain you devote the time and energy to make certain your environment is conducive to learning would be my parting advice.
Dr. Tracie Swilley, this has just been such an honor. And the next time someone asks me, man, do you think our nation's schools can really reach these kids? I'm going to say, yes, we can. And can I introduce you to Dr. Tracie Swilley? So Dr. Swilley, thank you for your belief in your students, but not just in your students. Thank you for being an inspiration and a model for leaders across this nation. Congratulations on your honor. And Principal Matters listeners, thank you for the devotion that you give every single day to making a difference, because what you do matters. We'll see you again next week. Thanks, Tracie. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Principal Matters.